different type of definitions, different introductions, different definitions for the subject, for the psychology. Here we further we study it based on different schools. So I have taken 4 or 5 schools. The first one is the structuralism. So these people talk about the structure of the subject. Structuralism. Structuralists, we call them structure. They talk about the structure of the psychology subject, how it build up. So here there are some psychologists or prominent people are here who talk about this structure. They are Wilhelm Wundt. He's a German psychologist. Both people are German psychologists. Talk about the structure of the mind. How it structured. So Edward Bradford Titchener. These are the leaders of this structuralism. They started to talk this structure of the mind. What is the basement or how it built? It means our mind built. So mind formation of the mind. Those type of things they discuss under this structuralism. We call it structuralism. And here Wilhelm Wundt. I told you that he is a German psychologist, and he developed first psychology lab to the subject in Germany, Leipzig. He developed the lab to identify this structure. So they studied introspection. I think you can remember the word introspection when I introduce you the definitions. There were introspection method. So here they use this introspection method, or they try to identify our structure of the how it structured. So what are the components of the mind? For that they use this. They studied about this introspection. If you can remember, the looking our inner mind. That is the method. So they forced to do the self-observation. So we, if we want to study our mind, we can do the self-observation. We can do we can observe our thoughts by ourselves. That is the introspection method. And to do this, they built the first psychology lab in Leipzig in Germany. So this is the first scientific lab to be studied the structure of the mind. මනස කියන එක කොහොමද හැදිලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා බලන්න මේගොල්ලෝ මේ ලැබ් එකක introspection method එකකින් studies කරා. Laboratory experiments. So they checked the ideas or views that we have in our mind, or they asked people to disclose all the thoughts in our mind. By looking at all the thoughts, they try to identify, or they observe the mind. They try to solve the problems. They try to treat psychological disorders or psychological malfunctions. by looking at the internal or inner thoughts in our mind. That is why they developed the first psychology lab in Leipzig in German. So this is structuralism. We call it structuralism. So purpose of the lab was to study the mind, to study our mind systematically. So earlier they had not the proper way to study the mind, but they introduced this introspection method, and it was the method that used scientifically. Scientifically means earlier there were not such scientific method, but this introspection at the moment they considered that this is a scientific method. So people can record what they think. So scientists recorded the thoughts using different instruments. So here they studied conscious experience. Now you know these words, conscious experience involving one's thoughts, because we can look at only the conscious experience. We can't focus our attention to those we are not aware. Unconscious and subconscious activities we cannot observe. So only the conscious activities they studied. So this is structuralism. Conscious experience involving one thoughts, feelings, sensations, perception, and ideas. So their main purpose was to study the structure of our mind. So for that, they focus their attention to study the experience or the conscious experience, the awareness of our thoughts, feelings, or the sensations, what we can understand, what we can identify. Those thoughts they observed, and they focused their attention on analysis of the components of consciousness. The consciousness, විඥානය කියන එකේ මොනවාද තියෙන components. They try to analyze the components, whether it has categories, or can we divide into categories like unconscious or subconscious. Likewise, they try to identify this structure. එක හැදිලා තියෙන හැටි තමයි මේගොල්ලෝ try කරේ බලන්න by analyzing activities of the mind. To find out the structure of the mind, they analyze our mind activities, such as feelings. If we have feelings, what kind of feelings that we have, sensation, how it work, how sensation work, and how it send the information to our mind, and how it works, perception, whether the sensation and perception are two different things, or the similar kind of things, similar kind of mind activity. Likewise, they try to identify our internal world, internal mind, how it works. So analyze activities of the mind. මොනවාද මේකෙන් කියන ක්‍රියාකාරකම් කියන එක තමයි under the structuralism they try to analyze, try to study the structure හැදිලා තියෙන හැටි, structuralism. And here the second school now, they Wundt and the Tischner guided one school, structuralism, and this functionalism. This is another school, second type of school, functionalism. By looking at the word, you can understand what the what the function is in this school. What is the function? Functions. They try to look at the functions of the mind. The previous group of people studied the structure, the method that it was developed. By looking at their structure, try to identify. Here, people wanted to know the functions, kriyakarkam, activities. William James, John Dewey, James Rowland, E.L. Thorndike, Woodworth. There are some followers of these people. So they wanted to look at the functions of our mind. The mind part came very far away place, so they wanted to study the functions of our mind, right? And most of these people were biologists. They by profession they were doctors, MBBS doctors. So they were biologists. So they try to adapt biological study of the mind, biologically, how it works, what are the areas that needed to be support to proper function of the mind. Likewise, they try to study the biological avenues, biological sides, to understand the mind or the people or the behavior of a people. So they try to look at the functions. Adapted biological study of the mind. Biologically, our internal organs, brain, thalamus or hypothalamus. So they wanted to test the functions of these internal organs to change our mind, or whether the biological organs affect to the behavior, or whether the biological malfunctions affected to the malfunctions or overfunctions affected to the behavior. මේක තමයි functionalism එකේදී කරේ. අපේ internal ඉන්ද්‍රියන්, අපේ අභ්‍යන්තරික ශාරීරික අවයව බලපානවද මේ අපේ මනසේ ක්‍රියාකාරීත්වයට. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට මොන හරි අපේ thalamus හරි hypothalamus හරි, there are different organs in our body. So whether these different organs lays hormones, if the organs lay the hormones, then how it affect to our mentality, how it affect to our behavior, how these hormones or nerve system affected to our behavior or proper mentality, or for the abnormalities, mental disorders. Likewise, they studied the biological functions, affections to the body or the mind. So discuss about mind and behavior. Mental life is an organism of adjustment to his environment. So this was their idea. Discuss functions of the nerve system. Functions of the nerve system, functions of our body, functions of the brain, whether these things affect to our behavior. Likewise, nerve system, heart, brain, these organs affected to our what we call the mind. Discuss functions of the nerve system. කොහොමද මේ අපේ ස්නායු පද්ධතිය බලපාන්නේ කොහොමද? ස්නායු පද්ධතිය මොනවාද අපේ මේ අපේ හැසිරීම වෙනස් වෙන්න කොහොමද ඒවා බලපාන්නේ? More scientific and more practical methods were introduced. More science, they used lot of scientific methods several instruments, scientific instruments they used to show about, or they used to understand the biological functions and the psychological functions. So different tests they did. More scientific, more practical methods were introduced. So for the functionalism, these people supported to introduce this school. These are the forefathers of the functionalism. So this is the second type of school. We will move into the third school called behaviorism. I think you have heard about this school, behaviorism. Behaviorism is also a very famous school, type of school, kind of school. Now we study the meaning of the psychology, or the definition is psychology is a study of the behavior. This was a prominent school among all, behaviorism, because most of the learning theories or personality theories or motivation theories introduced by these behaviorists. We call them behaviorists. මේක එක ස්කූල් එකක් which was discuss about the behavior of the human being, behaviorism. So their idea was to explain the behavior. They explain the behavior of human being. They said that by looking at the behavior, you can understand their mindset. You can understand their mentality or mental disorders. Likewise, behavior is the most important thing, rather than considering rather than the mind or the mental functions or mental structures. Without looking at those things, we can understand the behavior. So they talk about the behaviorism, behavior. John B. Watson, J.B. Watson, famous person, J.B. Watson introduced learning theories. Ivan Pavlov is also a behaviorist. They most of them are some they are scientists. They did scientific experiments to improve the psychology. So I think you have the idea about. I don't know whether you know this Ivan Pavlov. He did an experiment with dogs. It's the most famous experiment, behaviorism. So if you there's a mistake in the sentence, so could you change your behavior? Who cares how you feel? So by looking at your behavior, we can observe. So your thoughts or your feelings, your internal sensation or perceptions are not important to people. They bother about your behavior. So that is what the behaviorists talk. So if you they don't want to know about your internal feelings. It's not a matter. The important one is your behavior. That is what they that is what their view, their idea. This behaviorism emphasize on behavior. By looking at our behavior, then we can understand the people. No harm, whatever the things that in your mind we can observe by looking at your behavior. That is what the behaviorist my thoughts. So if you explain the aggressive behavior, then it says that your internal thoughts are not very strong. Likewise, you can learn some behaviors by looking at others' behavior, or there were some theories such as social learning theories. So under behaviorism, they discuss this behavior. So people started to ignore how you feel inside. So in here, they didn't want to look at your internal feelings. Just they uh, pay their attention to your behavior. That is the behaviorism. All that mattered was how you act, how you acted, how you acting. The important one is your acting, your activities, your behaviors. So discard, they avoid consciousness means the things in your mind. අපි aware වෙන දේවල් තමයි consciousness. ඒකට ඒගොල්ලෝ ඒක discard කළා. They reject these views. They discarded consciousness and other mentalistic notions. මානසික තත්ත්වයන් they discarded mentalistic notions, different type of mentalities. So mentality is not important. We should not bother about the mentalities or the unconscious or conscious activities of our mind. No, we don't want to bother about those things, such as soul. We can't study. The mind, very difficult to study according to the behaviorism. Mental life is also not important. Images, ideas, those mentalistic notions are not important. So they discard, they reject these thoughts from the previous functionalists and structuralism. Focus attention to observable behavior, but the important thing is observable behavior. So if you can observe something, yeah, that is true. So that is what their view. Don't discuss about fear. They didn't discuss about the fear. Instead of that, mentality, observe heart rate and blood pressure. So which we can observe. If it is if that moment is a very strange moment, so fear is the mental situation, mentalistic thing, but we can't study it properly. Instead of that, we can study your heart rate. බය වෙලා බල්ලෙක් පස්සෙන් පන්නන් එනවනම් අපිට තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ ඔයා බය වෙලාද නැද්ද කියලා. හැබැයි we can see that your heart rate has risen. Heart rate එක වැඩි වෙලා තියෙනවා. Increased. The heart rate has increased. Blood pressure has increased. And without looking, instead of looking at your fear, mentalistic situations, your thoughts, we can observe your facial expressions, the color of your eyes, color of your face, whether it became a red or whether it became a pale. සුදු මැලි වෙලාද මේ වගේ දේවල් බලන එක අපිට බලන්න පුළුවන් rather than the thoughts. So this was the example given by the behaviorists. We understand observable behaviors are more important rather than the thoughts or the mentalistic notions, mentalistic things. So this was the this was behaviorism. And here they talk about the stimulus and the response theory. They introduce different theories, stimulus and response theory. So based on the experiment that they did with the dog. So you can find the experiment with dog, Ivan Pavlov's dog. So I think you have heard. So he gave a meal to a dog with the bell sound, both bell sound and the meal given at the same time, and it continues. This is the experiment that Pavlov did early 90s. So in this experiment, they introduced this stimulus response theory in this experiment, using the meal and the bell sound. So at the same time, Pavlov given the meal to the dog. At the same time, he rang a bell. So the dog developed a bond with the bell sound, and he continued the same activities for several times, and the dog, Pavlov's dog, had a bond with the bell sound, and Pavlov continued the process, and he measured the salivation process. කේටය උනන එක measure කරා. එතකොට මේ කෑම දෙන එකයි බෙල් සද්දයක් නිකුත් කරන එකයි දෙකම එකට වුණා. After continuing several times, he stopped giving meals to the dog, but he measured the salivation process, and the dog had the bond with the bell sound. Without meal, he salivated. කෙල උනනවා, කේටේ ශ්‍රාවය කරනවා, මේ කෑම නැතුවත්. That is what the experiment did by this Ivan Pavlov. So likewise, there were several behaviorism studies. So using the stimulus, they train the dog and the animals. So this is behaviorism, stimulus and response. So people normally response to the stimulants. So we all work according to the stimulus that we receive. So that is what the behaviorists view. So this is one type of one type of ideas. So that is behaviorism. And there's another school called Gestalt psychology. So these people rejected all the other types of thoughts, other schools, other views. අනිත් ඔක්කොගේම අදහස් ideas මේගොල්ලෝ reject කරනවා. මේ හැම කෙනාම තමන්ගේ මතයක් prove කරන්න. අපි කියන්නේ අර නුවර යුගයේ කවීන්, කොළඹ යුගයේ කවීන්, අන්න ඒ වගේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ අනිත් අයගේ method එකට යන්නේ නැතුව ඒගොල්ලෝ වෙනමම දෙයක් introduce කරනවා. That is what the school says. ඒක තමයි මේ behaviorism වලදී කියන්නේ behavior එක තමයි more important than the thoughts. අපිට stimulate and responses are very important. අපි stimulate කරන්න පුළුවන් එක එක දේවල් අපිට දීලා තෑගි gifts reinforce කරන්න පුළුවන් දේවල් ගැන තමයි behaviorism වලදී කතා කරන්නේ. එතකොට structuralism වලදී කතා කරනවා mind එකේ structure. Functionalism වලදී කතා කරනවා functions. දැන් මෙතනට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා අපි fourth school is the Gestalt psychology. Gestalt is like a cognition. Here they talk about the wholeness කියන්නේ සමස්තය කියලා කියනවා. මේගොල්ලෝ බලනවා මේ ඔක්කොගේම එකතුවක් තමයි මේ මිනිසා කියන්නේ. නැතුව අපිට behavior එක විතරක් වෙනම ගන්න බෑ, thoughts විතරක් වෙනම ගන්න බෑ. So collection of all these elements called Gestalt psychology. Gestalt මනෝවිද්‍යාව කියලාම තමයි මේකට කියන්නේ. Maxwell Timer, Kurt Kofka, Kurt Lewin, Wolfgang Kohler. Most of these people are from Russia, Russian psychologists, Russian biologists. They talk about our cognitive abilities, right? Cognitive. If now you know what are the cognitive abilities, our mental abilities, like problem solving activities or abilities that we can develop using our brain. Those are the cognitive abilities. So here the whole of an experience can be more than the sum of its parts. So Gestalt means that the wholeness is very important than its parts. Behavior එක විතර නෙවෙයි මේ ඔක්කොගෙම එකතු තමයි අපිට වැදගත් වෙන්නේ කියන එක තමයි මෙතනදී කිව්වේ. Gestalt කියන්නේ organized soul. සමස්තය දකින්න ඕනේ. සමස්තය කියන්නේ environment එකයි, අපේ mentality එකයි, the things that we received at the specific moment, behaviorism එකයි, ඊට පස්සේ අපේ cognitive abilities means the abilities that we can solve the problems, creativity problems, those everything affect to our behavior. We can't take one element from all of these things. So organize as a whole, not as a collection of elements. That is they said. Stimulus and response are not important. SR විතරක්ම නෙවෙයි අපි කියන මේ SR theory behaviorism වලදී කියන එක stimulus and responses. ඒක විතරක්ම නෙවෙයි වැදගත් වෙන්නේ. Important thing is stimulus, organize and response. So under the organizing part here, not SR, the important thing is we need to focus our attention into organizing part. So if we take this Gestalt psychology, these people conducted several tests with apes. Apes, you know, chimpanzees, monks, with the different type of apes. Apes lawa ඒ කියන්නේ apes considered that they are having cognitive abilities. ඒගොල්ලෝ ටිකක් මේ problem solving abilities are high. So then they did experiments with apes. ගොඩක් ඕගොල්ලෝ බලුවොත් එහෙම Gestalt මේගොල්ලෝගේ experiments chimpanzee යොදාගත්ත experiments ගොඩාක් තියෙනවා Gestalt psychology එකේ. එතකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ කියන්නේ මේ organizing part එක ඉතාමත් වැදගත්. ඒකෙදී අපිට පෙන්වන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා මේ brain ability එක. brain එකට තියෙන ability එකක් ඒක we can show using this behavior. So important thing is organizing. Stimulus are there, stimulus උත්තේජයන් තියෙනවා, responses අපි ඒකට දෙනවා by organizing our mental capacities, mental abilities. So organizing part is very important. And here they discuss about the insights. Insights means internal strengths, insights. So our cognitive abilities, our memory capacity, brain capacity, or memorization ability, problem solving ability, creativity, uh, innovative thinking, uh, solving problems in a correct way. So, for all these things, our insight will support to do these things in a proper way, proper manner. So, they discuss about the insight. අපිට එකපාරටම දේවල් පහළ වෙනවා අපේ මේ brain එකේ තියෙන capacity එක අනුව පහළ වෙනවා කියන්නේ ඒවා අපිට ඒවා දැනෙනවා. So, they talk about the brain ability, capacity of our brain, right? That is what the insight. අපිට සමහරලාට අපිට දේවල් තේරුම් ගන්නේ මේව නිසා. So, insight. Can you see the picture? Who is there? Have you seen this earlier? Who is in the picture?
Girl. Woman.
Yes, woman. How old is she?
16.
16. Yes.
Yes, she is very tired.
Looks very tired. Did you all see the younger lady, younger girl?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you see two faces? Two faces. Yes.
No, in this time I can't see two faces, only one.
Two faces. There are two faces. Some may see three. Old, yes, old woman and a younger girl. Very, very pretty girl and very, very old lady. Try to see.
Yes.
Yes, yes, there are two different faces, but to see that we some people says that according to a mental age you can see this girl or the woman. I don't know whether it is correct or wrong. අපේ වයසට අනුව අපිට නම් දැන් පේන්නේ මේක මේ old lady තමයි. old lady ව දැක්කද නොදකපු අය ඉන්නවද? ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඉතින් young ළමයි නිසා ඔයගොල්ලෝ දකි මෙන්න මේ මොනවාද scarf එකයි මේ පොඩි hat එක සහ මෙන්න මේ මූණ නේ? ඒකනේ ගොඩක් අය දකින්නේ. But there is a අර කවුද මේ මායාකාරියක් වගේ මුණකුත් තියෙනවා නේද? දැක්කද? Have you seen? මෙයාගේ කට her eyes. These are the eyes of an old lady, old woman. Right? So, why I added this picture, this shows our insights. So, they discuss about the insights of a man. So, අපේ තුලේ තියෙන දේවල් තමයි මේවෙන් පෙන්වන්නේ කියන එක තමයි මේ ගෙස්ටෝල් මේ සමස්තය තමයි බලන්න ඕන කියන එක මේගොල්ලෝ කියන්නේ. So, there are different arguments on these things, but this is one prominent school, Gestalt psychology. Still, still some people are believing these things, so they introduce, they argue different on different areas, different categories of the
වයස ගැන
psych.
කිව්වා.
වයසත් මේකෙන් පෙන්නනවා කියනවා. වයසනේ 16 අපේ වයසත් එක්කලා තමයි කියනවා අපිට පේන්නේ මේවා. මේ වැඩිපුරම පේන්නේ මේකෙන්.
ඒකලා දැන් ඒ වයසක මූණ මට පෙවුන්නේ නැහැ ඉස්සලා.
ඒකනේ. ඕගොල්ලෝ තාම යන් බ්ලඩ් නේ. පේන්නේ යන් අය විතරයි යන්ස්ටර්ස්ලා. දැන් පේනවද නේ? පැහැදිලිවම ඉස්සෙල්ලාම අපි ඒක බලද්දී අපිට තියෙන්නේ අපේ මෙන්ටැලිටි එකෙන් අපි බලනවා කියලා කියන්නේ. ඒක ඉන්සයිට් එකෙන් අපේ හිතේ ඇතුලේ තියෙන දේවල් තමයි අපිට එළියේදී පේන්නේ. as it is නෙවෙයි. ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් එකක් අපි අයිඩෙන්ටිෆයි කරගන්නේ අපේ ඉන්සයිට්ස් එක්කලා. ඉන්සයිට්ස් කියන්නේ අපේ තියෙන සිතුවිලි, අපේ තියෙන එක්ස්පීරියන්ස්, අපි ඉගෙනගත්ත දේවල්, අපේ වැලියුස්, අපේ විෂන්, මේවට තමයි අපි මේ ග්‍රහණය කරගන්නේ මේ සමස්තයේම තියෙන දේවල්. බාහිර ලෝකයේ තියෙන හැම දෙයක්ම අපට ගෝචර වෙන්න විදිහට තමයි අපි මේවා ග්‍රහණය කරගන්නේ. ඒකට තමයි අපි ඉන්සයිට්ස් කියන්නේ. අපිටම ආවේනික වෙච්ච දේවල් තියෙනවා. එහෙම නැතුව අර ඒ ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් එක as it is අපි ග්‍රහණය කරගන්නේ නැහැ. ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් එකට අපි දෙනවා මීනින් එකක්. අපි අර කොග්නිටිව් ඇබිලිටිස් වලින්, කොග්නිටිව් කියන්නේ අපේ කොග්නිෂන් කියලා තියෙනවා. අපේ කොග්නිෂන් කියන්නේ අපිට තියෙන මේ හැකියාවන්, දක්ෂතාවයන්, අපේ බ්‍රේන් එක හා සම්බන්ධව අපිට තියෙන අපේ ඇබිලිටිස්. එතකොට මේවත් එක්කලා මේ මතකය, ඉගෙනගත්ත දේවල්, අපේ තියෙන ගැටලු විසඳීමේ හැකියාව, ඊට පස්සේ ක්‍රියේටිවිටි, අලුත් දෙයක් දකින්න පුළුවන් මේ ඇබිලිටි එක, මේ ඔක්කොගෙම සමස්තය තමයි මේ අපේ බිහේවියර් එක හරි සයිකොලොජි එක හරි කියලා කියන්නේ. ඒක තමයි මේ ගෙස්ටෝල්ට් අය කිව්වේ. අපි උදාහරණයක් විදිහට මෙතන ඔයගොල්ලෝ දැන් ඕනනම් පස්සේ බලන්න මේගොල්ලෝ කරපු එක්ස්පෙරිමන්ට් මැක්ස්වෙල් ටයිම කරලා තියෙනවා අර චිම්පන්සිත් එක්කලා. ඒගොල්ලොන්ට කිසි ඇවරියක් එල්ලලා ඒක බලන්න මම පස්සේ දවසක ඒක පෙන්නනවා ඕගොල්ලොන්ට මේ ලර්නින් තියරිස් වලටත් ඒක අදාළ වෙනවා. ඒකට ඒකේ යා වටපිට බලලා ඒකට ළඟා වෙන්න පුළුවන් දේවල් හොයා කාමරය ඇතුලේ තියෙන. ඒකට මේ සමස්තය කියන එක දකින්නවා. කොටු කැලි දෙකක් තියෙනවා, පැතැන් දෙකක දාලා මේ දෙක එකට එකතු කරොත් අතින්ද රීච් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට මේක අර අපි ගැටලු විසඳීමේ හැකියාව අපේ ඉන්සයිට්ස් වල තියෙනවා. මේවා අපි කලින් විසඳපුලා පුරුද්ද තියෙනවා. ඉතින් මේ වගේ දේවල් එක්කලා තමයි මේ ගේ සමස්තය පිළිබඳව අවබෝධයක් තමයි මේගොල්ලෝ කතා කරන්නේ. එහෙම නැතුව මේ එකින් එක කොටස් වෙන් කරලා ගන්න බෑ අපිට. අපේ මේ මිනිසා පිළිබඳව කරන මේ හැදෑරීමට කියන එක තමයි මේ ගෙස්ටෝල්ට් සයිකොලොජිස්ට්ලා කතා කරන්නේ. මේවා ගැන ඔයගොල්ලෝ මීට වඩා චුට්ටක් ස්ටඩි කරලා බලන්න කවුද මේවා මොනවද මේ කියන්නේ කියන එක. I just wanted to give the insight actually, right? Now you can see the different two people clearly. Two human, right? And the fifth school is psychoanalysis. So with Sigmund Freud, I think you all have heard his name. When psychology comes, then the Sigmund Freud is also remembered. So this is he considered as the father of psychoanalysis, not the psychology, father of psychoanalysis. So during his time period, people believe that most of your feelings come from a hidden place in your mind, called the unconscious. අපේ හැසිරීමට වැඩිපුර බලපාන දේවල් කියලා කියන්නේ unconscious එකේ තියෙන දේවල්. conscious, unconscious and subconscious. There's a theory, he introduced iceberg theory with this three type of mind. Unconscious mind is the most vast area of our mind, like an iceberg. So it is the very large area of an iceberg. Which we cannot see. We can only see the upper part of an iceberg. අපිට බලන්න පුළුවන් අර upper part එකනේ. නමුත් හානිකර ප්‍රදේශ තමයි වඩා විශාල. පොළොව යටට තියෙන කොටස ගැන අපිට තක්සේරුවක් කරගන්න බෑ. ඒකත් අපේ හරියට මයින්ඩ් එක වගේ කියලා තියෙන්නේ. just පොළොව උඩට මූදු මට්ටමට එන කොටස අපිට මෙතෙන්දි අඳුන්වලා දීලා තියෙන්නේ subconscious එක. සමහර consciousness. සමහර සිතුවිලි අපේ මේ යටිහිතේ හැංගිලා තියෙනවා. සමහර ඒවා යම් කිසි ආකාරයකින් උඩට එනවා. සමහරලාට යම් එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් එකක් නිසා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. කවුරු හරි දැක්කම වෙන්න පුළුවන් මේ ඒවා. ඉතින් මේ විඥානවාදීන් කියලා මේගොල්ලොන්ට කියන්නේ සයිකෝ ඇනලිසිස්ලා මේගොල්ලෝ මනස කියන එක ඇනලයිස් කරන්න try කරා. which is very difficult to do. The analyzing of our psyche is very difficult. So they had different arguments on it. Psychoanalysis. We protect ourselves from our real feeling by using defense mechanism. Here they talk about these defense mechanisms. So we know there are some hidden things in our mind, hidden unconscious things in our mind which we cannot easily reach to the end. There are different things, different unconscious things which cannot access to ourselves, or we don't know the things, and this is the more important area of our mind. Why? Those unconscious feelings may affect to our mental health. So we protect ourselves. අපි මේ මානසික ඇතුලේ තියෙන දේවල් අපි රැක ගන්නවා. සමහරවිට ඒවා පෙන්වන්න නැතුව වෙන වෙන ඒවා පෙන්නනවා. ඩිෆෙන්ස් මෙකනිසම්ස් තමයි එළියට පේන්නේ. අර ඇතුලේ තියෙන දේ පේන්නේ නැහැ. සමහරවිට මොනවාට හරි අපිට බයක් තියෙනවා නම් අපි ඒ බය පෙන්වන්න නැතුව වෙන දේවල් තමයි චණ්ඩිකමක් තමයි සමහරවිට පෙන්වන්නේ. එතකොට ඒකත් නිකන් ඩිෆෙන්ස් මෙකනිසම් එකක්. අපිට අයිඩෙන්ටිෆයි කරගන්න ඩිෆෙන්ඩ් කරනවා අපේ ඉන්ටර්නල් thoughts අපි. පෙන්වන්නේ පිටත වෙන දෙයක්. So this is unconscious එක තමයි more prominent වෙන්නේ මෙතනදී. conscious, subconscious, unconscious structure of the psyche මේගොල්ලෝ මේවා ගැන කතා කරා. ඔයගොල්ලෝ දැන් බලන්න මොනවද මේ conscious කියන්නේ? we know conscious activities. Subconscious are the things that we can easily reach to the mind. Unconscious we cannot reach. The psychologist can see some unconscious parts of our mind. So but very important part is the unconscious layer and structure of the psyche. So the just නිකන් මේ වචන ටිකක් තිබුණාට there are big meaning. මේවට ගොඩ කතා කරලා තිනවා මේ psycho analysis ලා. Structure of the psyche කියපුවාම අර ඔයාලා අහලා තියෙනවද දන්නේ? id, ego, super ego කියලා වචන තුනක් කතා කරනවා. id is the inner mind, or the natural part of our mind කියලා කියනවා id එක. ඒක තමයි අපේ structure එක කියන්නේ මේ මනසේ. ඔයගොල්ලෝ නිකන් බලන්න මොනවද මේවා කියලා. id අද වෙන වැඩක් නැති නිසා structure of the psyche. It ego කියන්නේ how we show to the our outer world. අපේ internal thoughts අපි පෙන්නනවා. internal thoughts පෙන්නන්නේ අපි සමහරට ඩිෆෙන්ස් මෙකනිසම් එකක් විදිහට හරි වෙනස් විදිහකට හරි පෙන්වන්න පුළුවන් අපේ සිතුවිලි. ඒක තමයි අපි ego එක කියන්නේ. අපිට තියෙන moral එක, ego එක. අපි පෙන්වන විදිහ වෙනස් වෙනවා. and super ego අපිට වෙන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන එක. අපේ ටාගට් එක කොහෙද තියෙන්නේ? super ego තමයි අපේ moral අපි යන්න ඕන ටාගට් එක පෙන්වන්නේ. ඉතින් මේ වගේ ස්ට්‍රක්චර්ස් අපිට කියලා දෙනවා මේ psychoanalysis වලදී. and concept of repression, repressed. We have some repressions or wishes, desires in our mind. අපි අපේ තියෙන බලාපොරොත්තු ඒවා අපිට කරගන්න බැරි වුණොත් ඒවත් affect වෙනවා අපේ behavior එකට. මේ වගේ ගොඩාක් දේවල් ගැන කතා කරන මේ psychoanalysis. Repressed things or suppressed things which we could not satisfied in our childhood or in our history, previous life. There may be some different things which we could not achieve. So those thoughts, those feelings will affect to our current life or the future life. Repression is also very very important when it comes to the mental health. අපි මේවා දේවල් අපිට ලබා ගන්න බැරි දේවල් අපි තියෙනවා. අපි සමහරවිට aggression, sexual feelings මේවා හැමදේම මේවේ ස්ටෝර් කර ගන්නවා. එතකොට ඒක අපේ behavior එකට ගැටලුවක් වෙනවා පසු කාලීනව කියන එක මේ psychoanalysis වලදී කියනවා. catharsis. ඒවා අර repress කරගත්ත ඒවා ගන්නෙ කොහොමද කියන එක ඔයගොල්ලෝ බලන්න මේක කොහොමද කරන්නේ. psychosexual development මේවා එක එක අපේ life stages වල අපි කොහොමද මේවා develop වුනේ. අපි develop වෙච්ච ආකාරය අනුව ඒවා පසු කාලීන ජීවිතයට වැදගත් වෙනවා බලපානවා කියන දේවල් තමයි මේ psychoanalysis වලදී මේ Sigmund Freud උහුම විස්තරාත්මකව විස්තර කරා. Under psychosexual development, he divided our lives into 5 categories like childhood, childhood කියලා මම මේක කියන්නේ 0 to 2 ඇත්තටම childhood ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට පස්සේ what we call oral stage, anal stage. Likewise, there were 5 stages. In childhood, we try to satisfy our mouth. Under the anal stage, likewise, there were 5 stages, and each stage we try to satisfy different organs of ourselves. So if we do not satisfy the specific organ, or for example, if we take childhood, we call oral stage. Being 0 to 2 years, we try to satisfy our mouth, oral. Then at that time, there are specific activities to be done to satisfy our mouth. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට මව්කිරි බොන්නම ඕනේ ළමයෙකුට ඒ කාලේ අම්මගෙන් හරියට මව්කිරි හම්බුනේ නැත්නම් එයා එතනදී dissatisfied වෙනවා. එතකොට අන්න ඒක repressions විදිහට අපේ ස්ටෝර් කරගන්නවා අපේ මනසේ. ඒක තමයි මේගොල්ලෝගේ අයිඩියා එක උනේ. ඒක එතකොට ඔන්න addictions වලින් you try to satisfy satisfy your mouth. In your adult age stage also, you try to you show some childish behaviors. Smoking or licking your fingers or some abnormal sexual behaviors shows these unsatisfactory events of our life, different stages. මේවා තමයි psychosexual development stages කියලා කතා කරනවා. අපි personality development වලට මේවා කතා කරනවා. ඉතින් මේවා catharsis අපි මේවා එළියට ඇදලා ගන්න එක තමයි අපි catharsis එකක් කියන්නේ. මේවා ඇදලා ගත්තම ඔන්න අර abnormal behaviors සමහරවිට අපිට හොඳ කරන්න පුළුවන්, අඩු කරන්න පුළුවන්, ඒවට treat කරන්න පුළුවන්. මේ මනෝ විශ්ලේෂණවාදය කියලා අපි මේකට කියනවා psychoanalysis. මනස අපේ විශ්ලේෂණය කිරීමක් කරනවා මේ මනෝවිද්‍යාවේදී මෙන්න මේවා use කරලා නැත්නම් මේ negative behaviors අඩු කරන්න නැත්නම් mental disorders නැති කරන්න හොඳ කරන්න මේ psychoanalysis කියන එක අපි තාමත් පාවිච්චි කරනවා. ඔයගොල්ලෝ අහලා තියෙනවා මේ මෝහනය කියලා වගේ දේවල් මේ methods පාවිච්චි කරනවා. Still we use this psychoanalysis to treat some disorders, to treat some mental disorders. මානසික රෝග වලට ප්‍රතිකර්ම කරන්න අපි තව සමහර ඒවා මේ වගේ දේවල් පාවිච්චි කරනවා. ඔය ටික තමයි අපිට Sigmund Freud. This is the Sigmund Freud. කතා කරන්න තියෙන schools. There were 5 schools. So I think you got the point. Uh, is there any question which related to these 5 schools?
No, madam.
Did you understand?
Yes, madam.
Yes. There were put your registration number to the chat. Right? There were 5 schools. First one is structuralism, functionalism, behaviorism, gestalt psychology, and psychoanalysis. So these are different schools, different views, different thoughts on human behavior and the mind. Right? That is what we talk on the schools. මේ අපි schools කියලා කියන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලන්ට තේරෙනවද school කියන්නේ අපි different type of ideas were collected into one. ඒක තමයි ඉස්කෝලයක් අපි කියන්නේ පාසලක්. වෙනම ගුරුකුල කියලා අපි කියන්නේ නේද? ඒක අපි සිංහලෙන් කියන්නේ ගුරුකුලයක්. එක සෙට් එකක් යම්කිසි එක දෙයකට එකඟ වෙනවා. එක මතයකට එනවා. එතකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ මේ මිනිස්සු මනෝවිද්‍යාව හරි මිනිසා පිළිබඳ කරන අධ්‍යයනයේදී යම්කිසි යම් කාරණා වලට එකඟ වෙනවා. එතකොට ඒක ගැන කරන කතා කරන එක සමාන අයිඩියාස් තියෙන ටීම් එකක් අපි කියනවා ස්කූල් එකක් කියලා. එතකොට there were 5 schools in the history: structuralism, functionalism, behaviorism, gestalt psychology, and psychoanalysis. So you need to know the difference between these schools. So that is enough for today. So please put your signatures, the names and the numbers. Okay, thank you very much for joining today's session. I have sent, I think you have received the PowerPoint, and next week we will not have the lectures. After New Year I will take my session. Okay. Okay. Thank you,
madam.
Thank you, madam.